After last chapter's introduction of the 11 supernovas, it was nice to get to see one in action and a few in the background, and of course the one in action stopped Zoro from making a big mistake. Hunpith, chapter 499, Sabaody, I think, Park. Well, hello my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, and I'm here to bring you another review, the 499th, by the way, in the awesome, tantalizing, and exceptionally well-written and realized series that, of course, we've all known to come to know and love. Can't even speak today, and that, of course, is One Piece. Now, in our last chapter, following those events, it was really the introduction of the 11 supernovas, two of which we found out, of course, are both Luffy and Zoro. You know, they're with the Straw Hats. And as we were introduced to some of the other ones, and some of them, again, it's too hard for me to really weigh in other than just on the character designs because I haven't really seen any of them in action. I was corrected, however, though, several times in the comments about Red Flag X Drake being Red Flag Diaz Drake. And that makes sense because X is the Roman numeral for 10, Diaz is the Spanish word for 10. So I'm assuming that's what it is because he kind of does have like a Spanish conquistador type look to him, you know, almost like a Spanish swordsman, Three Musketeers style type deal. So anyway, we were introduced to them, and that was pretty much the the bulk of the chapter, if you will. And now the group here that's on land, Luffy and company, and Brook and such, and Nami and Chopper, are now going to go off in search of Rayleigh Silvers. Is that how it's pronounced? It looks like Raleigh, but everybody says it's Rayleigh, I think that is, which sounds kind of like a bad country singer's name. But if that's what it is, that's what it is. Anyway, the ship coding master that of course Hachi talked about them finding several chapters ago, and then of course it was mentioned and whatnot. So that's where they're going on to, and as the crew winds up going, we know of course there's still a few back on the ship, Sanji and such. Zoro of course is off wandering around, and as we wind up seeing Luffy and company, they decide to go to. They're basically told that one of the places that you can probably find this Rayleigh at is the actual amusement park, the Sabaody amusement park. So they wind up going to this really, really cool amusement park, and it's funny because you can see in certain things that are drawn, certain types of just areas and certain things like with the ships and whatnot, you can tell that Oda really has a love for it because you can just see how well realized and how inventive and thoughtful it was, just all the thoughts that went into that creation. So they wind up going and basically partying at the park with Papa Goo and of course Kami and Hachi, and everybody's just chilling, having a good time. Now, while this is all going on, we wind up seeing a bounty hunter that actually gets some information on that there was a mermaid on land, of course, Kami, and with Straw Hat Luffy. And basically now we know that somebody's looking to take her, kidnap her. Apparently the human trafficking here is very big, and they call it human trafficking, but it's actually like mermaids and fishmen, I guess, that are just, apparently that the shit just kind of flies there. It's okay. It almost seems like it's legal. That's what you find out by the end of the chapter. But the first half of the chapter is really just kind of focused on everybody just hanging out, having a good time. Kami talking about how she just wanted to go here, and she never would have been allowed to by Hachi or Papa Goo if it wasn't for her being with the Straw Hats because of them being so strong and so powerful. So obviously it's kind of a shady area in the sense that if you are a mermaid or a fishman, it could be very, very bad for you as far as getting captured by some of these thugs, these bounty hunters, these human traffickers, if you will. So at any rate, we wind up seeing that for the first half. The second half of it, though, which I thought was pretty nice, is we wind up seeing in one of the other, I think it was the archipelago, I think it was like 24, something like that. It's one of the, basically like the lawless lands, right, where a lot of the pirates and stuff like that hang out. The other thing, too, that's worth mentioning is that Shaki had mentioned, too, that even though these 11 supernovas, these superstar rookie pirates, are here in the archipelago, on their way, of course, to the New World, the world government's really not paying much attention to them because they've got other things going on right now. So I'm assuming that has something to do with the capturing of Ace, and then of course the the imminent execution of them, or at least that's what's been said, and that we found out so far. Could be other things too, I don't know. But basically they're not concerned right now with these supernovas and them all being there. Like, they're aware that they're there, they just don't really give a shit. So that was another nice thing to find out as well, too, is that they're not particularly going to be hunted down, you know, while they're here, as long as they kind of get in, keep quiet, and get out, right? So anyway, we wind up seeing in this ward, we see one of these celestial dragons, you know, these lucky sperm club people, and he's walking around, it's St. Charlos, and he's riding around on a human, right? And talking about how he's looking for the other ones, and they ditched him, blah, blah, blah. And the bottom line is just to show how much of an asswipe this guy is, you know. He goes and he kicks the human, and he says he sways too much, it's too bumpy of a ride, blah, 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 all this other crap, right? So then he goes in, and of course, when anybody's around these celestial dragons, and we even see a couple of the supernovas that are around, the monk, I think, was one of them, Euroj. Anyway, and they have to go, and they're like, okay, whatever, celestial dragon, we still gotta bend the knee, right? You gotta bend the knee to him. So then all of a sudden he's walking through and he's like, well, how come they're not bending the knee? And there's people that are, it looks like a nurse and a couple of people that have a guy on a stretcher, right, that's bleeding out. And they're like, no, I'm so sorry, you know, we have to get to the hospital. He's bleeding out, you know, and this is a terrible thing and blah, blah, blah. So this dick, this little dick with eyes, Charles, and he says, well, what's more important, bending the knee to me, showing respect to me, or saving a commoner's life? You know, you commoners wouldn't exist if it wasn't for me. And I'm like, oh, God, this just serves to make you just want to hate these people even more, you know? So anyway, he goes over and he knocks the guy off of the stretcher, you know, and, in a feeble attempt to try to kill him. Then he goes and the nurse that's over by him, it looks like the nurse that's hunched over him, he says, this will be my wife. This will be my 13th wife. As a matter of fact, get rid of 1 through 5. They're boring me. And you're just thinking, what is wrong with this guy, right? Well, anyway. But so as he does that, then this woman is already betrothed to somebody, you know, and this guy comes out and he says, but that's my fiance, you know. This guy pulls out a gun and just shoots him, you know, puts him down right there. So then, all of a sudden, this is the whole setup for Zorro, who comes walking through the middle of the street. He's lost as usual, you know, I'm assuming. And he's drinking. He's salty as fuck, just the usual Zorro, right? And he just walks right up on this dude. He doesn't bend a D. He does nothing. And he looks at him. He's like, what? Well, you need directions or something? Which is very comical coming from Zorro, because Zorro doesn't know where the fuck he is anytime, any place. The last person in the world you want to get directions from. But anyway, so there's a little bit of banter back and forth between these two, but the celestial dragon goes, and oh, you don't want to kneel for me, and he just goes to shoot him. Well, Zorro's ass goes and dodges or deflects that shit real quick, and then it looks like he's going to come at him, and there's a couple other people, you see a couple of these other ones, these onlookers, you know, and again, like I said, there was a couple of the, the supernovas that are watching this and just going, oh shit, right, because if he goes and attacks this dude, even though it's the right thing to do right now, an admiral and basically a hit squad's going to come descend upon the archipelago, and it's going to pretty much be fucked for everybody, right? So all of a sudden, right at the last second, boom, Zorro gets clipped and knocked down by this Jewelry Bonnie, right? The one that we were introduced, one of the supernovas, you know. And she was the one with suspenders and the underwear and everything like that. Anyway, she tackles him. And, and then goes and says, oh my God, my brother's dead. And she's like, play along. And she plays this whole thing out, and afterwards it winds up being, it's ketchup or it's tomato sauce or whatever, right? And the celestial dragon, she fooled him into thinking that he actually killed Zorro, because he's like, oh, well, if he's dead, that's okay, but I thought I missed him. Is it my eyes playing tricks on me? And obviously Zorro was fast enough that he dodged that shit, but then she came in there like a split second later and was able to tackle him and make it look like he had fallen to the ground, and then, of course, played it up and acted it, you know? And it's funny because as this celestial dragon goes and tuttles off to, go and just be the piece of human waste that he is off in the corner somewhere, and goes off out of sight, she gets up and she's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And he's like, nothing. Why? She's like, no, what's wrong with your head? And he's like, no, I'm fine. And she's like, we pirates have an unwritten rule and code and this and that. What the hell is your deal? Zorro doesn't know about the celestial dragons. So, and I think even if he did, he'd probably just be like, whatever, I don't give a fuck, right? But it's funny because you see a couple of the other, the other pirates, the other supernovas kind of in the background looking on and going, man, that's crazy. And he's only the first mate, and somebody says, oh man, he looks like a monster. I just kind of saw that bloodthirst in his eyes for a second, that thirst for blood, And it was just pretty cool to see, because these are things we all know about Zorro, but now it's, others that are onlookers that are, potential rivals that they're going to wind up either maybe teaming up with or fighting against sometime in the future, maybe the near future, I don't know. That they'll cross paths. Are like, hey, this dude must be a monster. He's got 120 million buried bounty, and he's only the first mate, And this guy does not look like somebody who takes orders well, and so his captain must be a beast, So and obviously we all know about Luffy, so. But anyway, that was that whole interaction. The chapter winds up ending, though, with showing Sanji and the other couple of Frankie and stuff, and I think Robin might have stayed back on the ship, if I remember right. And they get a phone call from the snail transponder, you know. And it's Chopper. He's freaking out, you know, and he's, oh my God, it just happened so quick. I think, and this is where it gets into the whole, like, I think that like the world government just sort of like doesn't really care that there's like human trafficking going on here, and that like mermaids and fishmen especially, they get grabbed and they get sold in these like human markets or whatever, you know, these like slave trade type deals, right? Reminds me of like Gladiator or something. But, you know, so Cammy has been kidnapped, and we know from the beginning of the chapter that there was obviously somebody that was over looking at her. I forget what the name of the gang was or whatever that kind of was going to go after her. But we know that she's been taken. Chopper's like, we don't know where she's been taken. We don't know where she's going to be sold. We don't know what happened. You know, basically they probably just got distracted and she got snatched or whatever the case is. So Sanji's like, you know what, just stay there. It's cool. Listen, I'm going to bring in professionals for this one. He's like, I'm calling up the Flying Fish Riders, right? So it's kind of neat to go and see these characters that went and were pretty much just these goofy, goofball sort of throwaway characters that at the time I was thinking that, and then the big reveal of this Duval, I was thinking that this was actually the antagonist of the arc. You know, I didn't know. From what I know, I think it's a shorter arc. I think it's like 20, 30, 40 chapters, something like that. So I was thinking in my mind, okay, well, they're introducing this guy, you know, this mystery man that's been wronged by one of the Straw Hats, and him and these kind of goofy throwaway characters that don't really strike fear in my hearts, especially after something like Thriller Bark, and then of course Ennie's Lobby and all the events there, and CP9 and everything else they went up against. I kind of was like, you gotta be kidding me, this is a joke. And in reality, I just took it too harshly. It was a joke, you know. It was just to set things up. But of course, you don't see that. You can't see what is it when you're in the midst of the woods? You can't see the trees or something like that. Anyway, you get the idea, though. So my chapter question for you, though, brothers and sisters, is: do you think that Jewelry Bonnie did the correct thing, you know, by tackling Zoro, or do you think that they should have just said, "Ah, what the fuck"? I mean, I don't know what the power level technically is of an admiral. I know they're obviously stronger than our crew and our Straw Hats. But with these 11 supernovas in the archipelago, you're telling me that all of them and their crew fighting together, if they had to, couldn't take out one admiral? I don't know. It's, again, a little bit hard to wrap my mind around because I haven't really seen much of the admirals other than Aokiji in action and whatnot. And even that, we haven't really seen the full extent of his power really going forward. I mean, he did pretty much dismantle the Straw Hats, at least the few that were attacking him on Long Ring, Long Land. But other than that, again... haven't really seen one in like a life or death fighting type situation, but I imagine that they're these beastie, you know, type characters, and that's pretty much why even pirates like this, even these supernovas, are like, we don't want to fuck with them, we don't want none of that, don't want none of them, don't have none. Anyway, leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We look forward to catching all of you in the next Fun Nation. Oh boy, thanks for watching, and remember to follow me in other places too.